LifeWave, and people that have never heard of LifeWave before, their first experience is going to be getting patches to relieve pain, reduce stress, provide a good night's sleep after having been in an emergency situation, and what have you. These are the types of things we're doing to build past the usual limitations of the direct selling industry. So we're doing many projects like this, but it was incredible to get so high up in the Danish government and get this recognition. So there's a lot more to come, but I wanted to share that. Okay, so you've been patiently waiting. Let's go on and get into it now on this new X39 study. Now, X39, of course, is our lead product. And Steve and Gina Merritt and various other leaders that have had astonishing success in LifeWave will tell you that this should be the product that you lead with. Keep it simple, and you'll be able to build and have a successful business. And when we come out with the X20 water machine in July, there's this phenomenal synergy between the patches and this water technology. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but this webinar is mostly focused on the results of this brand new study. It was performed by NIS Labs. We had the privilege of working with 2 PhDs up at the lab on the study, and they were absolutely blown away by the results. Now, the reason why we focus on looking at mitochondrial function is because aging is directly associated with how well your mitochondria works. The mitochondria is the power generation part of the cell. It's what converts food to energy. And as you age, the amount of energy your cells produce declines. And remarkably, what's been found is that if you can rejuvenate the mitochondria, you get the cells in your bodies to start looking and acting like younger, healthier cells. Many people that use X39 have experienced what we call youth renewal. In other words, when you have a healthy diet, you have your proper nutrition, you're getting proper sleep, you're exercising, drinking water, staying away from bad habits. When you use X39, you start to look and feel physically younger. We have lots of cases like this. So the question is, why is this happening? Well, we're going to take a look at that today. So the purpose of this study is we wanted to find out what happens within the first few hours of wearing X39 on mitochondrial function and inflammatory stress in the body compared to a placebo, as well as what happens over the course of a month. And the findings are fascinating. So this was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, and this was with 12 adults between ages 40 and 75. So the type of outcome we want to look at is what happens to the amount of energy in the cell. If we can increase the amount of energy that the cell is producing, we can get the cells to start acting like younger, healthier cells. And then, of course, this is our goal. We want youth renewal. We want to stop and reverse human aging. So these are important studies. We also want to look at the inflammatory process. Now, inflammation gets a bad rap. We usually associate it with something negative. But we need inflammation to tear down old tissue in the body or damaged tissue so we can make way for new healthy tissue. So we need a degree of inflammation. The problem, though, is that as we age, it becomes more and more difficult for our bodies to remove this inflammation. And there's even a term associated with it today called inflammaging. And this just simply means that as we age, the amount of inflammation in the body goes up. So anything that we can do to reduce inflammation, we can improve our health span and our lifespan. When we have too much inflammation in the body, when it's chronic, DNA, strands of DNA can break. The stem cells die in the presence of inflammation. So you start to lose the ability to heal from injury. We also want to look at something called CRPs, which are C-reactive proteins. This is an inflammatory marker produced in the liver, and it's associated with a number of disease states. Again, it's a naturally occurring inflammatory compound. It serves a purpose in the body, but if it hangs around chronically, that's a problem for our health. So these were blood tests that were done, and we wanted to look again at these inflammatory markers and anti-inflammatory markers. And cytokines, by the way, are important because stem cells are attracted to inflammatory cytokines. So in other words, this is a test where we can start to determine how well are the stem cells going to work in the body. Excuse me. And then, as I mentioned, we're looking at C-reactive protein. Another test that we want to look at, pardon me, is mitochondrial resilience. So what this means is that if you take the cells and you take the mitochondria and you subject them to an oxidative or inflammatory stress, how well is the mitochondria going to perform? Now, if the antioxidant system in the body is working well, then the mitochondria should have resistance to oxidative chemicals and inflammatory chemicals and still survive and do their job and produce energy. But if your antioxidant system is depleted, the mitochondria will fail in the presence of oxidative and inflammatory stress. And that's obviously a really bad thing. So that's an important test. Now, the health and function of the immune system can also be correlated with biological age. So one of the things that we did was we studied 3 different types of immune cells, 3 different types of leukocytes in this study to look at what happens to the health and the vitality of the immune system when we're using X39. So part of the results here was that not only did we see results, but they were rapid and they were also sustained over time. So one of the important findings is that when you wear X39, there's an immediate improvement in mitochondrial volume in the lymphocytes. So what does that mean? The lymphocytes are an immune cell. It's a type of white blood cell. And the mitochondria are what produce energy. And what we're talking about here is that the number of mitochondria in the cell increases when you use X39. So in other words, you put on X39 and you're increasing the ability of your immune cells to make more energy. And that's going to come in handy if your body wants to resist disease. We're only talking about general wellness. We're not making any disease claims, but we want a healthy, vital immune system. So the basis for this is improving energy. Put on X39, we get more energy being produced in the white blood cells. Also in the monocytes, again, another type of white blood cell used to fight things like viral infections. Monocytes are also involved in tissue repair. Within 2 hours of applying X39, we see an increase in the number of mitochondria in the monocytes. Same thing with the neutrophils. Again, another type of immune cell. within the first 2 hours, we get an increase in the number of mitochondria, again, resulting in an increase in the total amount of energy that these cells can produce and utilize. So the increase in mitochondrial volume reached a high level of significance at 2 hours. So this is incredible, that just within the first 2 hours of use, we already get statistical significance. So here's some important things that happened, and we want to look at this so we can understand what's going on with X39. How is it helping to support the overall healing process? Many people that use X39 find, wow, I have an injury from 10 years ago, and it's healing over a period of 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. How is that possible? Well, we're ramping up the amount of energy in the cell, and then it's going to go back and normalize once that injury is repaired or the body has fought an infection. So we also see this trend over 4 weeks, is that we're increasing the energy in the cell, increasing the electrical potential of the cell, and then when it's the X39 has done its job, body starts to reach homeostasis again. And we see this trend here. And we see that again in the monocytes, and we see that in the neutrophils. So to visualize this, yeah, I'll show you on this slide. Again, when we're saying increased mitochondrial volume, it's the number of mitochondria in the cell. And this is one of the ways you can increase mitochondria in the muscle tissue is through resistance training. So this is a survival mechanism. You do something like lift weights, and in order for, if you exert yourself, you break the muscle tissue down, and now you've got more mitochondria that are being stimulated to grow in the muscle tissue so the muscle can do more work. And this is an anti-aging mechanism. So we see that just using X39 and increasing copper peptide is enough of a stimulus to produce this anti-aging effect. Now, here's some other things that are super important. We're all faced with stress today, from long work hours, from pollution, not having a healthy diet, and we need to be able to have the ability to withstand that stress so we're not getting sick, and also long term, we can increase our lifespan. Now, oxidative chemicals play an important role in the body's immune system. As a matter of fact, oxygen therapies are used to treat viral infections, and they're used to treat diseases like cancer. So if you're someone listening and you've been suffering with in any stage of cancer, I would highly recommend you look at treatments like ozone therapy, hyperbaric oxygen, hydrogen peroxide, because oxygen radicals directly destroy cancer cells. This has been known for decades. But if normally what happens in the cell is when the immune system produces ozone or hydrogen peroxide, your antioxidant system is there to prevent the oxygen radical from damaging healthy tissue. So again, if your antioxidant system is depleted, those oxidative radicals, the oxidative stress, will damage healthy tissue. And that's going to affect the way your body produces energy. So I think that's probably pretty clear. So what we found in this study is that wearing the X39 patch was associated with an increase in the mitochondria's ability to resist oxidative stress. That's fantastic. Yet another benefit of X39. And of course, these results were statistically significant as compared to the placebo. And I'm going to go, this started out, by the way, as an 82 slide PowerPoint. I had to cut that down to about half. So I know you're all going to have a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to get through this. It's a ton of information, but it's super interesting. But we see here, consistent with the other studies that we've done. So, for example, when we've done studies and we draw blood, we see within the first day of using X39 that we get statistically significant increases in copper peptide. Here, this study reflects those other studies that we see an improvement in the function of the immune cells in the body the very first day of wearing X39, and this continues out through the first month of using X39. This was a 4-week study. And this is just going to be an example. If we see placebo at the green line and X39 is the yellow line, this is showing an increase in the ability to resist oxidative stress. And this is showing how oxidative stress induced changes in mitochondrial volume. So, in other words, when our bodies are subjected to stress, one of the ways that our body deals with this is to produce antioxidants like glutathione and SOD to help manage those oxidative chemicals. The only way we can make intracellular antioxidants is if we have the energy to do that. And the way to increase energy output is to increase the number of mitochondria. So that's why when your body is subjected to oxidative stress, you use X39, and now the cell has an increase in the capacity to generate more energy to resist the oxidative stress. And here we see, again, compared to placebo in X39,